I am going to explain you when and when not to use written communication. At some point of time, written communication is very effective, but sometimes written communication is not at all effective. Written communication is a complex form of communication. Why? Because you cannot see the other person. The communication process is totally dependent upon the words. So that is why you have to be very careful regarding the words, and you have to think before writing. So you have to use the right words, you have to write the correct sentence so that the other person does not misunderstand you. So that is why it's kind of a complex mode of communication, whereas sometimes written communication is very very effective, and on the other hand, sometimes written communication is not at all effective. So let us see the situations when we can use written communication. So, when you want to convey complex information, written communication is somewhat helpful in conveying complex information. Why? Because when you share a document with someone, okay, the person will have the document, the person will be able to read it repeatedly until and unless he or she understands the entire message, isn't it? So in that case, written communication is very helpful, whereas oral communication is not much helpful in this kind of a situation. Why? Because I have shared a complex information with you, but for some reasons you did not understand, or you did not even clear your doubt, you did not even ask me the things that you did not understand, that you could not understand, and hence the communication won't be complete or effective, isn't it? Whereas in case of written communication, once you share the document, the receiver can go through the document multiple times. The receiver can read it repeatedly, isn't it? The receiver can read it multiple times, and in that process, the receiver will be able to understand the complex information. All right, so that is why whenever you want to convey some complex information, so you can use the written mode of communication. The next is need for permanent record. Okay, so whenever you want to keep a permanent record, so in case of oral communication, you cannot keep a record. Today, if I say you something, and tomorrow, if I just say that I have not said this thing, will you be able to prove me wrong? No, because you do not have any kind of proof, isn't it? So, in that kind of situation, written communication is helpful. In this kind of situation, oral communication is something that is not going to help you. You won't be able to keep any kind of record. Okay, official, unofficial. So generally in case of official records, what do? We generally maintain written documents. We maintain files, isn't it, in order to keep a record of it. Otherwise, how will we remember all these things that has taken place over the years, and every day something or the other is there? So it's not possible to remember everything. So in order to in order to keep a permanent record for any kind of future reference, so written communication is very useful. Next is communicating with large audience. So whenever you want to communicate with a large number of with large audience, with a lot of people, then written communication is very helpful, because you can send the same message to different people staying at different places at the same time, which is not possible in case of oral communication. So if you want to deliver a message to 10 people, and those 10 people stay in different cities, in different places, you cannot call them, isn't it? It will take a lot of time, and even if you call them one by one, then definitely it is going to take a lot of time. So if you just write down a message and share it with everyone, So then it's quite helpful, isn't it? So that is why when you want to communicate with a lot of people at the same time who stay in different places, so in that case written communication is very helpful. Next is less need for interaction with the audience. So whenever you do not have to interact with the audience much, whenever you do not have to explain anything or take any kind of suggestions, or whenever you don't need to interact with the people, do not need to directly communicate with the people, then definitely written communication is the best way to share any kind of message in order to get rid of any kind of unimportant or undesirable interaction with the audience. So in that case written communication is very helpful. Next is to maintain uniformity of application. Now uniformity of application is when you want to share the same message with different people. So if you choose oral communication, then your words will keep on changing. Today I am explaining to you all this when not to use written communication. In the next class, when again if I again explain this topic, will I use the exact words? Yes, my content will remain the same, but will I use the exact words? Will I use the exact lines? No. In case of oral communication, it keeps on changing. The lines, the words, it keeps on changing. And sometimes when there are a lot of people involved in oral communication, so the message it basically changes. When you share a message with the second person with the third person in the fourth, and by the time the message reaches the 10th person, then the message is something different. It has changed. So this is the basic case with oral communication, basic situation with oral communication. Whereas in case of written communication, you can definitely maintain the uniformity. So one notice for all the students. Okay, if I have to like go and tell each and every student about a particular information, okay, regarding a particular information, then definitely my words, my sentences will keep on changing, isn't it? And that's not possible. That is also very time consuming, isn't it? So if I want to share the same message with the same words and the same sentences, then what I can do is I can just write it down. Okay, I can write it down and share the information. So in order to maintain uniformity, we can use written communication, which is not possible in case of oral communication. Next is when not to use written communication. So these are the situations when you can use written communication. Now I'm going to explain you certain situations when you cannot use written communication. Okay, so in these particular situations you cannot use written communication. So the first situation is in crisis. So during crisis, written communication is not at all effective because it takes some time. Written communication as compared to oral communication, it takes a little time. So that is why during crisis you cannot use written communication. Instead of that, you can choose oral mode of communication. Next is when a personal discussion is good enough. So when you feel like a discussion with the other person is good enough to solve the issue or to solve the problem, to share a kind of information, then you don't need to write and communicate, because as I had said that written communication is a complex mode of communication, so it might create certain misunderstandings. So when a discussion is good enough, then definitely you should go and have a discussion with the other person rather than writing and communicating. Next is to brainstorm, to seek clarifications and to generate ideas. If you want to brainstorm, or if you need a certain kind of clarifications, or if you want to generate ideas, brainstorming is basically to ask people about different ideas. So if there are 10 members in your team and you call them for a meeting and you tell them about a particular subject, and then you ask their opinions and views, and you ask them to give certain ideas, that is brainstorming. Okay, brainstorming is done when you basically when you don't have much idea, and you take the help of others to generate ideas. So it's a teamwork, it's basically a teamwork. So whenever whenever you want to generate ideas, or whenever you want clarification, so then you cannot write and communicate, because that is going to make it very complex. So that is why call for a meeting immediately, and then obviously you will be able to do the required task. Next is to resolve conflicts. So, in order to resolve conflicts, you need a discussion, you need a personal discussion. Writing and trying to resolve any kind of conflict or any kind of issue is not a good idea, is not at all a good idea. So feelings are best expressed personally, so that is why do not use the written mode of communication to resolve any kind of conflict or any kind of problem. In order to find out the solution, you should definitely interact with the person personally. You should have a oral communication. Next, in cross cultural settings, as words have different meanings in different settings, so sometimes when you interact with people who belong to the different to a different culture, who has a different background, so sometimes written communication is not at all effective. Why? Because different cultures, the same word might have different meanings in different culture. So that is why written communication might create a lot of misunderstanding in that particular moment. So that is why sometimes oral communication is better when you are interacting with somebody who is from a different culture. So that's all when not to use written communication. And as I had already said that